Here are examples from lesson 1-4 on angle measures. And in this first one, we have Kermit the Frog star that's out there in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I like Kermit, so I thought this would be a good problem for us. And what it's telling us is that Kermit's star, each one of the points, they're all congruent angles, the points are. So I want to find the measure of each one of those angles. Well, now there's some information in here that's given. It tells us the measure of this angle down here is 2x plus 5, and the measure of this angle here is 3x minus 10. Well, if those angles are congruent, that tells us that their measures have to be equal. What I like to do is I like to just write down what I said. I just said that these two angles are equal. Well, the one angle is 2x plus 5. The other angle is 3x minus 10. And I just said to myself, well, they're equal in measure. So then write the equation that says that those two angles are equal. Now it's a matter of solving an equation. So what I would do to solve this equation, I'm going to subtract the 2x from both sides, and then I'm going to add 10 to both sides. By doing that, I have 15 equal to x. I just figured out what x is. Make sure you go back to the problem, because notice it says find the measure of each angle in Kermit's star. Well, I just figured out what x is, so now to figure out the actual measure, I'm going to need to plug that x value back in. So I'm going to go back to what I have marked in green, 2 times my x value, which is 15, and then I have to add on 5. Well, that's going to put me at 35 degrees. So based off the information given, every single angle in Kermit's star, I shouldn't say every angle, but the angles that are going out, they'll each be 35 degrees. Now my other one is this one. This problem's a little more in depth, and what I like to do is mark up your picture. I think it's going to help you a lot if you just do that to start, and then the equation's going to start popping out a little bit more. So I like to go through and read it. It tells me that ray BD bisects angle ABC. We want to find the measure of angle ABD if the measure of angle CBD equals 12a minus 8 and the measure of angle ABC equals 22 minus 11. Now in my head, that's kind of confusing as I read it out loud because there's a lot going on. Now, break it down into little pieces and it's not going to be quite so bad. So I'm going to start with this first one. Ray BD bisects angle ABC. Going back to the lesson, we learned that if a ray is really bisecting an angle, it cuts it into two congruent angles. So I'm going to find my ray BD in my picture, and it's breaking it, the big angle, into two congruent angles. So I know that those two smaller angles have to be congruent. Another piece of information that it gives me, it tells me that the measure of angle CBD is 12a minus 8. So I find angle CBD. Well, that's this one right here, and I'm going to write inside of it 12a minus 8. And the other piece of information, it tells me that the measure of angle ABC is 22 minus 11. Now, it's hard to write that in here because that's the whole angle. And if I would write it here, it would kind of look like, well, that angle ABD is 22 minus 11. So the way I do this is I'm just going to put a big arc across the angle that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to say that this is the 22a minus 11. So I have all the information that's in the, call it the story problem or the word problem part. I put it into my picture to help me out. Now I'm going to come back to these two little blue arcs. They tell me that those angles are congruent. Well, I know one of those angles is 12a minus 8 in terms of a measure, so that tells me that the other one's going to have to be 12a minus 8. And now I see that I know the two small parts of the whole angle, and I know what the whole angle is supposed to equal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an equation. I'm going to start with the 12a minus 8, call that the angle ABD. I'm going to have the other one, the 12a minus 8, that's angle CBD. Well, if I were to add these two angle measures together, it should give me the measure of the whole thing. Well, the measure of the whole thing, told us in the problem, is the 22a minus 11. I've taken the information from the story problem, put it into the picture, and then from the picture I created this big equation. Well, we all know how to solve an equation, so now it's just a matter of doing that. What I would do to start in this one is I'm going to add 16 to both sides. That's going to take care of the 2 minus 8s. And I'm also going to subtract the 22a. Now when I do that, I'm going to have 12a plus 12a minus 22a puts me at 2a. Now if I take the negative 11 plus 16, I end up with 5. Continue on, divide by 2. I find out that a equals, we could call it 5 halves. If you want to turn it into a decimal, we're at 2.5. Now come up here and make sure you answer the question. Remember that it told us that it wanted us to find the measure of angle ABD. Well, angle ABD, that's this one. So what I can do then is just plug it back in. I can take my 12 times what I just figured out for A, 2.5, or I'm going to go 5 halves because in this case it's easier for me to work with the fractions. And then I'm going to subtract the 8. And the reason I say it's easier for me to work with the fractions is because when I work with fractions and multiplying, I have 12 in the numerator, 2 in the denominator. That 2 is going to divide out to be 1. The 12 is going to divide out to be 6. And now I have 30 minus 8, which comes out to be 22. Now remember, this is asking for the measure of an angle. Angles will have degrees as their label. So the measure of angle ABD is 22 degrees, and that's what it looked for. So that'll conclude our examples on 1-4, dealing with the measures of angles.